What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Collider Interview Studio at Fantastic Fest 2023. I am here with the director behind the closing film of the festival, Nahnatchka for Totally Killer. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
Sasha Pearl-Raver is a Collider alum, so I've had my eye on this movie for a long time now.
Yes, I love Sasha. She's here. I know.
Well,
Sasha.
We all know what I'm doing after our interview. So there's many things about this film that excite me. One, I'm a big fan of your filmography, but this marks your first journey into genre filmmaking, horror filmmaking specifically. Yeah. So I got a couple broader questions about that.
Shoot, I'm ready.
Like, we're here. Clearly, we love horror movies. First, what was the very first horror movie that terrified you?
Exorcist. Definitely. I thought it was terrifying.
I guess you're going to see the new one then.
I'm going to see the new one. I mean, now there's 2 Exorcist girls.
I'm quite excited about that. So that's the first movie that terrified you. To add another layer to that, what's the first movie that scared you, but where you were able to process how special that kind of movie magic was? Where the power of horror filmmaking really kind of took hold and made you appreciate it?
Great question. I would say The Ring. I thought it was terrifying, but I was also like, this is amazing. And just like great storytelling and visually, I was like immersed in that world. But then I was like living alone at the time, and I went home that night and I like had all the lights on and I couldn't go to sleep. And so normally I would turn on the TV, but if you've seen The Ring,
can't turn on the TV.
That wasn't an option. So I was just stuck, just sitting there with the lights on.
Well, it takes a lot to scare me, but one of the most recent horror movies that I took home with me was Paranormal Activity, where I kind of like laid in bed and the bedroom door was cracked open. I just vividly remember looking down the hallway, waiting for, I don't know, the bathroom light or something to randomly turn on. I kind of like that feeling though.
It is like, it makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
Like you're firing, all your elements are on.
That's why I keep coming back for more. All right, I'll throw in one more question in this particular category. Of all of, I guess, the classic horror movies out there, which one do you think real you, would have the best chance of surviving?
Not many. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, I'm for sure, one of the first to die in a lot of scenarios. I think who do I have the best chance of surviving? Ooh, maybe Nightmare on Elm Street. Because I feel like I would just stay awake. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I would allow myself, like, I feel like I had control in that situation because so I would do whatever. Like you were saying, you only drink coffee.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would just do, that plus like 1,000.
I will preface this by saying every single answer to this question is wrong, but I feel like eventually your body just shuts down and then you're screwed because Freddy is there. But I always pick things like, like running away from Ghostface, because I know I can run.
No.
But even then I know ultimately I'll be wrong.
I'll be overtaken.
Ghostface will get me.
That's it. And as I'm overtaken, my last thought would be like, I should have picked Nightmare on Elm Street because I have more control.
I want to play a little I didn't write this game down. I hope I can remember some of these questions, but because you have such a fun movie here with an incredible ensemble, I want to put some of them on the spot right now. So sometimes we play a slasher movie survival game. So if I give you a couple of slasher movie tropes, I want you to tell me which actor, like the real person, best fits this descriptor.
Okay.
Who is the most likely to hear a strange noise, go and investigate, and be the first person to get killed by the slasher?
Randall Park.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Randall Park. I should have thought about that a little more. I feel like that came too quick.
No, that's what this is about. I feel like the quick answer is the honest answer.
Yeah.
Who is the most likely to trip and fall while running from the slasher?
Aside from me, we're talking about the cast. Trip and fall. I don't know. I mean, she's amazing in the movie, but maybe Julie Bowen? I don't know.
I can't wait to talk about a certain sequence. So good. Okay, so Julie will go for that one. Who is the most likely to be the last one standing?
Kiernan.
Oh, I'd believe that.
Kiernan for sure.
Oh, she's so good.
She's so good. Kiernan Shipka, legend. I mean, already. She's just like, she's gonna be all the things one day.
I'd believe that. All right, I'll give you 2 more. Who's Who's the one who everybody thinks is dead, but shows up at the last possible second to save the day?
Right. Like, remember me, bitch? That one?
Oh, yeah.
Olivia Holt.
Yes.
Olivia Holt for sure.
Something about this is aligning with their characters quite well, and I'm really into it. Here's one of my favorite ones to ask. Who is someone who would like walk into this scary situation, be like, F this, I don't like it, and just leave. Just walk away or give up.
Maybe Liana Liberato. She might just be like, I'm good.
She knows what she's doing, though.
Yeah.
She's like, I've been here before.
And that's why she would like see the signs and she'd be like, turn around.
So good in Scream 6.
Oh
so
my
good
God.
in Scream 6.
Amazing.
I'm loving the year she's having. All right, let's get into some of your filmography now. So I was reading that after Always Be My Maybe, you had a meeting with Jason Blum. Was that the kind of situation where you had an interest in genre filmmaking and went to him, or he had this script and came to you?
No, that was just like a general. So that was like pre this script. And it was sort of just like, you know, they were fans of Always Be My Maybe. I was fans of everything they've done. I was a fan of, and they were sort of just like, let's figure out something together. Like, I like the idea of mashups, you know, and after Always Be My Maybe, I felt so happy about what we'd accomplished with that movie that I didn't want to do just another straight rom-com. And so I was looking to figure out like what the next thing was. So we were like, let's keep talking, let's figure it out. And then Totally Killer emerged.
I mean, I'm here for another straight rom-com from you. I'll take
listen,
anything.
I mean, maybe now I'll go back to that, you know, I'll curve back there.
I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I also want to be greedy and keep you in genre filmmaking for a long time. So you know
what was weird? This actually came from an alt ending that we shot from Always Be My Maybe.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm just kidding.
I would watch that.
Suddenly just becomes this horror.
I mean, there is some sort of opportunity. We've also, like, one of the greatest things about Fantastic Fest is it just seems to be the kind of area that like sparks creativity. And we just keep thinking of like alt endings or what a movie might look like if two actors swapped roles and just like experimenting and how that could change everything. Now my mind is running wild with creative possibilities there. So you have that meeting with Blumhouse. Mm-hmm. Two-part question on that. When you walk away from that meeting, what is something that made you think these would be really great creative partners for me? And now having had the experience of making a movie with them, what is something they did on Totally Killer that, you know, helped you exceed your own expectations for yourself as a director?
I think Blumhouse and everybody who works there, I mean, the great thing about them is they make movies. Like, they love movies and they make movies. And I think a lot of times, you know, certain companies, like, it's almost like when they make a movie, they're like forced into making a movie, where it's like Blumhouse is like ready. They're like, let's go, let's make something. And they've got a real passion for it. So I think that was the thing I took away from that initial meeting of like, oh, these people are down to like play and have a good time and make something cool. And then actually making Totally Killer with them, they were just so supportive of like, you know, we have this big like set piece in Act 3 with this Gravitron. And we had to like go find a Gravitron in Canada and like shoot that practically. And they were down. They were down for all of it. They were like, we get it. Like, this is it. Like, we got it, you know. And so they're very supportive that way because they like to make movies.
Oh, I have a movie magic question about that Gravitron. Before I get too far ahead, though, I did want to talk a little bit about time travel rules. Because whenever you have a time travel movie, folks are going to sit there, and I get why. They're going to scrutinize every single rule that you use in the film. So maybe what is an example of another rule you saw another time travel movie play by that you're like, that works. We want to hold tight to it here. But then I also want like a time travel no-no, something that doesn't work for you that you purposely wanted to avoid.
Well, the thing that we wanted to do here, because like people are so familiar with time travel, and I feel like, you know, there are so many rules and people get into that, you know, I wanted it to be that Kiernan is also aware of that, you know, so like she's even referencing, she goes back to 1987, but in 87, like Back to the Future, the movie has been released because that came out in 85. So I think she's trying to call upon like all these like kind of references to other movies to help her explain to people like what she's talking about and why they're in danger or whatever. And I appreciated that because that felt real to me. Like if we all went back, we'd be like, okay, take your favorite time travel movie and like apply those rules kind of. And that's kind of it. But, you know, I mean, I think the idea of just not getting too far down the wormhole, but acknowledging like there are multiple. And that's why in our movie too, it was fun to cut back to present day during, so Jamie's in the past, but then it's still affecting, like seeing those links.
I like that quality.
In real time.
I like
thought
that
was like
quality
a fun thing.
and the references too. The Scream reference. Any Scream reference will always make me happy because of what you just said. Let's say you as in real you time travel back and you have to fight a slasher, something like that. What time travel movie rules are you abiding by most? Which movie do you turn to that will give you the best chance of surviving that scenario?
I mean, I think it's got to be the classic Back to the Future. I mean, Repo Man a little bit, too. But I think like for sure, I don't want to mess with my parents. I don't want to mess with anything that's going to mess with me, anyone I know from the past or anything like that. I think I would be very cautious.
Smart rules to play by there. All right, let's talk a little bit about Kiernan. So I was reading in the press notes that your first meeting, she just got the character. She loved the character and she got it. But I think there was something, there were little things here and there that the two of you could work on together. Can you maybe specify some of those little things that you worked on together to further hone that character?
I think Kiernan is such an integral part of this movie. Obviously, she's the lead, but she's playing so many things at once, so she's got the fun of this time travel element and she's, back in 87 and she's got to navigate that world as like a Gen Z person from like 2023. But she also has had this, without giving too much away, this like very tragic event happening in her life. And so keeping that, not losing that thread. And I think that was the thing that she and I, as we went through the script, were sort of like, where are we here? Like there's all this fun going on. All these balls are in the air. We're keeping everything alive and you're literally trying to, run for your life. But like emotionally, where are you? And I think like those were the things that we were kind of tracking.
Key to being able to have scares and have fun, but also have that really like that grounded emotional through line for a character like that keeps it just grounded enough.
Exactly.
I appreciate that quite a bit. I also just appreciate how incredible this whole damn ensemble is. I wish I could sit here and talk about everybody, but because we don't have time for that, to touch on maybe two people here, of all the other roles in the Totally Killer cast, which one was the easiest to find the perfect fit for, where like the right person just magically came to you, but then which character of the bunch took, the most legwork, the greatest search to find the right actor for?
I mean, I think the first one is Olivia for young Pam. I think seeing her audition, she just like embodied that 1987 like alpha girl, but in a funny way, like not, like, she was all of the things at once. And then seeing her and Kiernan interact, it was just like, that was it. Like I knew she was that role. I think the other roles, it was really like filling out the rest of the crew from the 80s because I wanted it to be just like the best actors, and so it was wide open. And there's like there's like red herrings going on, there's a killer on the loose. One of the, if you're familiar with the genre, somebody is the killer. Who is it? And really trying to hide the ball. So really trying to figure out who gives us that, like who could it possibly be? Like who's the, the misleads. So really putting together the 80s ensemble, I think.
Well hidden. To add to that a little. And also because like another thing I read in the notes, I think it was Terry Taylor was just singing your praises as an actor's director. And I always appreciate that. Of everybody in this ensemble, can you maybe name two cast members with completely different approaches to the work where they demand something different from you as their actor's director?
I mean, Charlie Gillespie, who plays young Blake, is like such a like free spirit dude. And so like he and I would just talk about like soulful energy of like scenes, like he wasn't really about like the actual thing, but sort of the vibe of things.
It's a good description.
And I was like, okay, like great. Like let's talk vibe, so that's the one spectrum. And then, you have other actors that are, kind of more like, okay, let's talk through the lines and let's like figure out, but also I would say like the young actors from the 80s, Anna and Steffi and everybody who plays like the Mollies, like they were all, everybody's so young. So it was like really like dialing in the exact right vibe for make sure it didn't feel like they were acting 80s, but rather like living there,
I do have another, this is very, very specific. I don't know if you're going to remember an exact line here, but one of the things that impressed me most about their performances is there are so many lines in this movie where if you don't deliver a pitch perfect, if you don't do a pitch perfect line delivery, it sounds false and also not funny.
Right.
But they sell these lines so incredibly well. Can you maybe pinpoint a specific example to tease for our audience where, I don't know, you were worried about a line and the way that it came out on the day just blew your mind and it worked better than you ever could have imagined?
I mean, I was just so lucky to work with like an incredible cast, truly. And, you know, they're so funny, but also like could pivot right to the Scream Queen element of it. You know, there was this one line, I think when they're going to the cabin kind of in the middle of the movie and they're reminiscing about their friend and they start talking about how she hated giving blowjobs. And they were, but the delivery was so like empathetic and like wistful. And that just made me laugh out loud, you know? It's just sort of like, you know, I mean, talking about your friend, like one of the qualities of like your greatly missed friend and that, you know, she hated giving blowjobs. Yeah,
that was a good callback. That was a good callback there. Also, all of Kiernan's comments about what is not appropriate anymore that's happening in the 80s. I'm like, oh, those could have like landed with a thud, but she made them work so incredibly well.
She was so great at that. And also because it's like, we're not trying to say one is right or one, like, she's just saying like, this, you can't do this anymore, you know? And people were like, what are you talking about? Like, there is no such thing as PC-ness. But she like really handled that with like a deft touch.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Really made the most of what was on the page there. And I loved it. All right, we got to talk about that mask.
Yes.
I guess one of the things that I'm most curious about is, did that mask go through any kind of evolution? What is the biggest difference between the first type of mask that was presented to you and what it wound up being in the finished film?
I mean, we went through a lot of iterations, you know, because as you know, like slasher movie, you really got to nail that mask. And I think that, you know, starting from the place of a handsome man and then sort of being like, okay, what does that look like? And then, you know, once we landed on that idea, then it was sort of this like compilation of like, let's pull all these references of these like 80s heartthrobs. And then Tony Gardner and his team at Alterian, like they just started to like composite stuff. And so seeing all those versions of everything and then like leaning into like the fun of it a little bit with like the Lost Boys element, like that earring, you know, so it's like a little like a touch of camp, you know, but still scary. And just like a handsome man smiling like that with like the chin thing, like, I don't know, it all sort of started to evolve and it was like, okay, now we're liking this element. He had to be blonde for whatever reason. Everyone was like, that makes sense. But yeah, it was a really fun process.
It's very effective, very memorable too. That's always what you want with a slasher movie killer. You want to walk away and be thinking about that mask and hoping that people wear that mask during Halloween.
I mean, that would be amazing.
I would like to see that. All right, my 2 movie magic questions now. First, you brought up the Gravitron. I'm not going there first. I want to ask about the dodgeball scene. What is the movie magic behind shooting a dodgeball scene? How much is practical and how much is digital so you can, you know, capture the creative nature of what it is to play a dodgeball game?
That was such a fun sequence to shoot. We worked with our stunt team, Simon Burnett, who's our stunt coordinator. So we have like stunt performers in there and then we have our actors in there. And we tried to shoot as much practically as we could. And then we would add, there's just a couple shots where I just wanted more dodgeballs flying in. So we added some like, you know, additional dodgeballs just flying through. But the actual like hits and all that stuff, that was all practical. And it just like, I wanted it to feel like, you know, like that scene from Saving Private Ryan when they get off the boat and it's just like chaos, the chaos of war.
Very successful. I always wonder about that when I watch dodgeball scenes, how much is actually real. All right, so now back to the Gravitron part. How much of that is real? Is it actually spinning it? I'm asking you a million questions. Is it actually spinning it at all? And what is it like directing actors if it's not spinning and they can't feel the force in order to make it look like they're feeling the force of the Gravitron?
There's so many elements to that. So it was like a real Gravitron that we found from some carnies in Canada. We brought it onto the stage. We had 3 days to shoot that final sequence. And so wherever our camera is pointed, like the part that you're not seeing, panels are taken out because we've got our cameras in there. So the Gravitron itself is not moving, but our DP, Judd Overton, and his team had a lighting rig going outside because there's like small cracks in between the panels so you can see the lights moving. And that suggests movement. Cool. And then we have the practical effects guys in there with blowers to blow, you know, so your hair, like that effect of being stuck to the wall is going on, but that can only play when dialogue is not playing. So, because that would not be good for sound. You know, everybody's got their element in there. And we have wire work. You know, we've got the stunts going. So when they get thrown back, that's wires pulling everybody back. And it's just all choreographed. We like storyboarded that sequence. We rehearsed it. We did previs for it. So we knew exactly how do they get on? When the machine starts, when she presses the button, it starts moving. The door's still open. How fast does it start going? And then when the door closes, then it picks up speed. So it's like all that kind of, yeah, it's crazy.
It's so perfect for this movie. It like watching scenes like that immediately like brought me back to being a kid and going on a Gravitron, which always seemed like the most dangerous thing. Like,
so dangerous.
Like the thing with like the least oversight.
I know.
And you make a nod to that too, where I'm like, nobody's actually watching these kids to make sure they're behaving on this ride right now.
Any ride where you're not locked in by something, you have no seatbelt or strap or harness, you're just like, well, here we go.
Like I went on that ride a million times as a kid. I loved it.
Same.
I don't want to spoil one of your first big chase scenes, but it is incredible. And it does have very successful, like classic slasher chase vibes. Having done that scene and done it so successfully, what is one do and one do not you would tell another director about to direct their first slasher chase scene?
I think really working through, it's like the choreography of that. And also like, how do you want it to feel? For me, like a reference like Atomic Blonde made a lot of sense because I think for some reason when women are fighting, I think being close to them, having the camera close and giving a sense of intimacy helps those sequences. And it makes you feel because you put yourself, or maybe it's just me, but I feel like I'm right there. And I feel like, oh shit, like what would I do? So I think, and a lot of action sequence, like beautiful action sequence, Mission Impossible, you have those wide shots and it looks amazing. But I would just be like, what's the feeling you're trying to, get through here and so convey?
Good. You have quite a few good set pieces here too.
Thank you.
I'm like trying so hard not to go too far and spoil anything. And like there's certain things like maybe a waterbed mention in our press notes, which is it. That's another like movie magic one. That's quite the feat.
I'm so excited for that one, for people to see that, because like that was a practical location. That was a lovely couple's house that we were like shooting in, and we had to like construct our own waterbed. So our production designer, Liz Kay, like made this this kind of flat that went over the bed, and we had all this like, as many practical elements as we could. So you'd actually stab it. The water is actually going. We had blood capsules in there, and then you would enhance it in post, but just, it always just looks great as much as you can get.
Is that something you can only shoot once and hope you get it? Or is it, or can you actually reset that and do it again?
If you reset that, I mean, that would have been like a whole other day. Yeah. So you'd have to come back the next day. We shot that once, and we had, I think, 5 cameras going.
That's the way to do it if you have to.
Yeah.
So good. I want to end on one big, broad, Fantastic Fest question, because I know you've been here a couple of days. And again, one of my favorite things about being at this festival, it's just a whole bunch of horror movie lovers and people who are really supportive of one another, and also an environment where it feels like I keep talking to people who feel inspired by what they're seeing here. Totally. So of everything you've seen at Fantastic Fest, can you pinpoint a specific something another filmmaker did that you thought to yourself like, wow, that inspires me to swing that big in the future?
I mean, I think like it's funny. I think because I've been living in the 80s world with this movie, I saw a movie yesterday from 1984 that was shot on all camcorder called Blonde Death. Mm-hmm. Have you seen it?
I have not seen it, but I looked at the list and I'm like, oh no, I'm sad to be missing that here.
I absolutely loved it. And I just think like the tone of it, it's so funny. Again, like there's stuff in that movie that you could never do today. You could never say today. But just the sense of awareness that movie had. And, they were making it for themselves almost. And that confidence. I just loved it. I just thought it was so funny, so well done, and so inspirational.
Oh, I love hearing it. I love hearing it. I love the vibes here. And I love your movie.
Thank you.
I'm not going to tell you how many times I've watched it, because I'll probably get in trouble if I admit that. But congratulations on Totally Killer.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
To everybody out there, do not miss it. Trust me, you're going to love it. And stay tuned. We'll have more from Fantastic Fest 2023 for you very, very soon.